Welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. I have the incredible privilege to share with you these words of Torah from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. The truth is, not just any ordinary Yerushalayim, not that Yerushalayim is ever ordinary, but a snowy Yerushalayim, as you can see in the background a little bit, a pretty significant snowfall, at least for Yerushalayim standards, has kind of brought everything to a standstill. As I was walking down to the Kosel this morning, it was eerily quiet, which of course on one hand was beautiful, for it allows for a sense of introspection that usually the hustle and bustle of Yerushalayim and of the old city don't usually allow for. But it is a great zchus to be able to share with you some insights on this week's parsha from this special and holy place. Parshas Mishpatim is filled with an incredible amount of halachos, most of it actually interpersonal law, tort law, that allows us to create a just and appropriate society, both in the desert, but ultimately preparing us to create a just society in Eretz Yisrael. The Torah says as follows in Parak Chav Beis Pasuk Chav Daled, chapter 22, verse 24. Im kesef talve es ami es ha'ani imach lo sielo kinoshe lo sesimun alav neshech. Pretty straightforward halacha. The Torah tells us if you lend money, don't become like a creditor, don't charge interest. Important halacha, known to all of us. When you lend money to another Jew, the lending of money to another Jew cannot be looked at as a business endeavor, cannot be looked at as a business opportunity. Rather, when I lend money to another Jew, it is a chesed, it is a kindness. And how do I demonstrate that it's a kindness? Ultimately, lo sesimun alav neshech. You can't charge interest. But the Mefarshim, the commentaries, are intrigued by this verse, because the truth is there's a number of phrases that seem to be extraneous, that seem to be unnecessary. And I want to draw your attention to one of them. So the Torah says, again, focus on the first part of the pasuk, Im kasef talve es ami, if you will lend money to my nation. And the Medrash already picks up, why do I need that phrase, es ami, if you lend money to my nation? I know that I'm talking about lending money to fellow Jews. The Torah says, es ha'ani imach, to the pauper who lives amongst you. It's a reference to a Jewish pauper. Why do you need that phrase, es ami, if you lend money to my nation? And the Medrash says something absolutely beautiful. The Medrash says, don't read it as es ami, don't read it as to my nation, but rather es e me, if you lend money to the one who is with me. And here the Medrash is telling us something absolutely beautiful, teaching us the lesson that the Ribono Shel Olam has a special place in his divine heart for those who have fallen upon hard times. That the pauper is someone who is es-imi. Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, when you lend money to that person, no, es-imi, he's with me. Every Jew is with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every Jew has a place in the heart of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Jew has fallen on difficult times. The Jew who is suffering, in this case, the pauper, the Ribono Shel Olam says, that person is closer to me than anyone else. That person I feel a connection to more than anyone else. So understand that when you lend him money, you're lending money, you're doing a chesed for someone who is es-imi, who is literally with me. And this yesod is so profound that the person who suffers has a special place in the divine heart. And it's an interesting anomaly, because often when we suffer, we sometimes feel even further from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that might be true from our side, and that's understandable. But from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, when he sees us in distress, when he sees us struggling, when he sees us going through difficult times, he brings us even closer. And by the way, this is not just true with things like poverty or illness, but it's also true when we suffer and when we struggle spiritually. Sometimes we think that when I'm in a bad place in my ruchnius, when I'm not where I want to be in my holiness, that means that I'm farther from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the truth is, what the Medrash is telling us is that when the Jew is suffering, whether it's financial suffering or whether it's spiritual suffering, when the Jew is struggling, whether it's physical suffering or struggle or spiritual struggle, es-imi, we are closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we are struggling most is when the Ribono Shel Olam pulls us closest to him. Now it's true, we may not feel it, and we may not experience it, but we have to know that it is happening nevertheless. There's a beautiful poem, a well-known poem, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's a poem that I first saw actually when I was in college. I was actually waiting in line to register for classes, and I saw this posted on the wall, and I'll read it to you. The title of the poem is called Footsteps in the Sand. One night I dreamed a dream. As I was walking along the beach with my Lord, across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one belonging to the Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand and noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest of times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me. So I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you most, you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never ever during your trials and testings, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. You see, the Ribono Shel Olam is always close to us and always with us. And even in those times when we struggle, and it is natural during those struggles to feel so distant and so apart from Hashem. Like David HaMelech said, Keli, Keli, lama azavtani. But we have to recognize that in those times of struggle, be it physical struggle or spiritual struggle, the Ribono Shel Olam is closest to us. Me, the one who struggles, Hashem says, is closest to me. The one who struggles is the one that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifts up. And yes, there's only one set of footprints in the sand. But it's not because I walked alone. It's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose to pick me up. And this is the greatest source of chizuk for each of us in times of difficulty, in times of struggle. We all struggle. And we all have incredible moments when we feel so alone and so forsaken. And maybe for some it's with poverty, and others it's health, and others it's fertility, and others it's finding a shidduch. And there are so many of us that struggle spiritually because I feel I'm just not where I need to be in life. I'm not doing what I need to be doing. I'm not the person I'm capable of becoming. And in those moments, we feel such a sense of divine estrangement. I feel so far. But in those moments, let us remember, Chumash Shmos, Parak Chav Beis, Pasuk Chav Daled, Im Kesef Talva Es Ami, not Es Ami, says the Medrash, but Es Imi. In those moments when we struggle most, those are the times when HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds us closest. May we be Zochem Yirtz Hashem to feel that closeness, to gain that chizuk from knowing that when we struggle, HaKadosh Baruch Hu never lets go. And may that knowledge that our Father is always close allow us to see a way through our difficulties, through our suffering, and through our struggles. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.